that version of yourself that worked so hard for you to get to where you are knew that this wasn't going to be forever. They prayed that this wasn't going to be forever. You know how many times you begged for this to just be over and for you to finally get some peace? You're at that point now, and now it's time for you to give that person who worked so hard for you to get here an opportunity to rest. They're ready to retire. They're ready to move on and do their own thing, and they're ready to just let you be the version of yourself that you are now. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Hood Soft Life podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina, and in this podcast, we talk about navigating the challenges that come with growing up in the hood and leaving those challenges behind for a soft life. Growing up in the hood comes with its own set of challenges, but what people don't tend to tell you is not only do those challenges follow you once you've made it out physically, but they tend to intensify. So I'm bringing you along on my journey. I'm going to be honest with you about the struggles and the lessons that I'm learning to achieve a soft life. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how you don't have to keep fighting anymore. So let's get started. First of all, I am proud of me. Okay, I'm doing 2 recordings in one day. Give it up for me because the energy has just not been there. And I really want to be consistent. I have a lot of good ideas. I have a lot of messages that I want to get out that I feel are super important. So I'm trying to do the best that I can with the energy that I have. And don't worry, I have a doctor's appointment. By the time you see this, I would have already had it. So hopefully, pray for me. I would have figured out what is going on because something's going on, okay? And if your doctor ever tells you that nothing's going on, nothing is wrong, and you feel something's off, go see somebody else. Weekly catch-up, I'll do that very quickly because I'm recording these on the same day. I came back from my church's 6th year anniversary, and it was very fun. It was like good vibes, good music, good food. We did a lot of games, stuff like that. It was very chill. I liked it a lot. I love my community at the church. And so it was just nice to see them celebrate. And I've heard a little bit about their story of where they started and how they've grown over the years. So it was nice to just celebrate them and recognize them. What else I got going on? Oh, I mentioned it briefly, and I'm happy to talk about it a little bit and not too much because I feel like I give you more than enough of my personal life already. But I started going back to therapy, which I'm very excited about. We love therapy over here, okay? Once I moved here, it was kind of challenging trying to find a therapist. I have insurance, apparently good insurance. I don't know nothing about insurance, but I have insurance. And so that wasn't the issue. I think the issue was just one, admitting that I needed to find another therapist and put that back on my plate because I have a lot of trauma and I'm not afraid to admit that. And I think I was just so overwhelmed with moving, starting a new job, going to grad school, being overwhelmed mentally that I couldn't handle just diving back into working on some of those traumas and working on some of those hardships. And so I was just putting that on the back burner. I think the other thing too was I knew the process of finding a therapist wasn't going to be perfect. It wasn't going to be easy. It doesn't always work out where you get matched with somebody and automatically it's a great fit and y'all get along, y'all can talk easily, no problem. They meet all your requirements for a therapist. And I wasn't ready for that process either. I wasn't here for all of that work at the time because I just felt like I had too much going on mentally. But now that it's summer break and I've had the opportunity to find a therapist, I actually have a different setup than I used to. I used to just have one therapist. Back in Massachusetts, I was diagnosed with anxiety and major depressive disorder. And those are things that I do struggle with from time to time. And moving here, I have a new setup where I have a therapist that specifically works with me for my anxiety and major depressive disorder symptoms. And then I have a therapist that specifically focuses on the trauma that I am working on. I'm not going to say what that is. That's just way too personal. But there's a specific trauma that I'm really trying to work on first before I can work on anything else. And it's hard. And trying to work on those 2 things, well, really those 3 things, the anxiety, the MDD, and the trauma it's just too much. So I like this little setup where I see my therapist for my anxiety and MDD once a month, twice a month, and then I see my other therapist on a weekly basis. That works for me. And they're both Black women. They're both great. I like their personalities. It's been a good start for me. This episode topic actually came from one of my therapy sessions and just trying to figure out what life is going to look like for me moving forward. Obviously on this podcast, we talk a lot about growing up in the hood. There's a lot of challenges that come with growing up in the hood. Those challenges are not the same as people who did not grow up in the hood. And there are a lot of traumas, extra challenges, mental hurdles that you have to go through. Going through that process with my therapist, we had a conversation of what I would want to tell my childhood self. And at first I had no idea. Just couldn't even think about it. And I feel like that's because I buried so much of my childhood like away, and I've just kind of just moved on because I had to be an adult so quickly in life that I didn't really have anything at first. But then I came up with the conclusion, like, you don't have to keep running and you still exist. I feel like when you grow up in the hood, or when you have to grow up early, and when you have a lot of things going on, or you have a traumatic childhood, you can forget that you are a child, or that you have an inner child living within you, and that person still very much exists. But also, in my experience, you don't have to keep running anymore. You don't have to keep fighting every single day, all day, every day. In the last episode, I had talked about how I felt like I wasn't this version of myself that I used to be in high school and college, the person who was super ambitious, who fought day in and day out for whatever I wanted. And I was fighting for my education. I was fighting for my ability to move out of my home. I was fighting and running from the person I did not want to be, because I saw so many examples of who I did not want to be. And so I spent all that time, all that effort that I put into my academics, to go to school, to graduate, to get jobs, whatever. That was literally me running away from who I did not want to be, where I came from. And that just became my whole world. It was just like, there is no stop and smell the flowers. There is no let's enjoy life, let's have fun, because we're running, okay? Imagine like you're in a horror movie or in Jurassic Park, and I'm not a movie watcher, okay? So if I get this wrong, it's just an example. But imagine you're in Jurassic Park and the dinosaur is right behind you. You think you got time to stop and smell the roses? No, you are running for your life. And that's literally how I felt. I felt like I was just running for my life every single day, and there was no time to enjoy hobbies. There was no time to enjoy friends. There was no time to just relax, because we're trying to get out of here. That really just became my whole world. And now that I'm 25 and I don't live there anymore, I think it's time to acknowledge that, yes, this version of me fought day in and day out for me to get out of my situation, because we had no choice. We were living in survival mode. Of course I was extremely ambitious. Of course I was hardworking. Of course I was doing whatever it took to get out of my situation, because there was no choice. What other choice did I have? I was either going to just work hard and fight day in and day out and do whatever I had to do to get out, or I was going to be stuck. That's at least how my brain registered it. Now that I'm not living there anymore, I don't have those issues anymore. I'm not even involved in those relationships that I once was anymore. And I'm older. I'm not 18 and 19. I'm not 21 and 22. I'm 25 now. I've gotten to this point where I need to understand, well, I'm grateful for understanding that I don't need to fight anymore. I don't need to run anymore. That is not in anymore. And there was a point in time where that was all I had. That's all I could do. But all of that worked out in my favor. And I'm not trying to glamorize the hustle. I'm not trying to glamorize the running away from your problems, the working so hard so you can get out of your problems. I'm not trying to glamorize that. It's hard. It was hard work. It was nasty work. It was disrespectful work. It was terrible work. It really, really was. But I'm still grateful for that version of me, because that version of me, that younger version of me, really worked hard so that I can be the version of me that shows up in front of this camera and tells you I made mistakes. There are parts of my life that were difficult, parts of my life that I'll never talk about on camera, but I still use those experiences to be able to help others. And if it wasn't for that girl that was fighting day in and day out for me to get out of those situations, I wouldn't be me. And if I'm being honest, I wouldn't even be here. I'm just grateful to that version of me, but it's time to let her go. The whole point of this podcast, the whole point, and I believe in the purpose of my life, is to use those experiences, be grateful for them, but move on. Like, yes, I grew up in the hood. Yes, I had a hard childhood. Yes, I had a rough upbringing. I did. But that doesn't have to be my entire life, number one. And number two, the whole point of me having this self-awareness, thank you, Lord, and this ability to grow as a person is for me to move away from that and to shift into a softer life. That is the whole point of this podcast. That is why we are called the Hood Soft Life Podcast. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's going to be a day and time where I am living my softest life, and I am so grateful for that, and I'm kicking my feet up. And that doesn't mean that there won't be hardships, but I will always, 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 always be from the hood, and I'll never forget that version of myself that worked so hard for me to get to that point. But it's time to say goodbye to her, and honestly, I think that that's really painful. One thing about me, and two things for sure, I'm gonna always plug therapy. And I get not everybody can afford therapy. I 110% get that. But therapy allows me to be able to understand the versions of myself and understand the experiences that I've had on a broader scale. I don't have all the answers. Shadow work can only get me but so far. I need somebody that's going to be able to push me in a comfortable manner to be able to understand why I'm feeling this way, or to look at the outlets. Why do I have these tendencies? Why do I think the way that I do? That's why I'm so grateful for this new setup that I have with these two therapists, and just coming to this realization that I don't have to fight anymore. And before I continue with the episode, I should have said this in the beginning. I'm not a professional anything. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not a doctor. I'm just a 25-year-old girl from the hood who is learning from their personal experiences. And I do have advice for you. And I do try to always leave you with a little bit of something. But I'm not a professional anything. My word is not bond. None of that stuff, right? You take my word and you apply it how you see fit. But just keep in mind, I'm not Dr. Sabrina nothing. Nothing. None of that. And I'm not even an expert in my own life. Okay, I'm just here. I'm just here. But my personal experiences and my mistakes, they came at a cost. And I'm trying to make sure that those mistakes and those prices that I had to pay, that I give those experiences and I give that knowledge to somebody else. Because look at inflation, okay? Inflation also comes in the personal realm as well. It don't always got to be cash money, okay? The cost that I had to pay, the price that I had to pay for my mistakes may be bigger for you, because you might have had some knowledge that I didn't have, or your route is just different, okay? So that is why I do my best to give you as much knowledge and as much advice as possible, but I'm not a professional anything. I just want to make that very crystal clear. I'm just your friend online. That's it. That's all. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I think the thing that is so challenging about saying goodbye to the version of yourself that worked so hard for you to get to where you are is that it can feel like you got to change everything about yourself. That person that worked hard, that was ambitious, that did whatever they needed to get it out the mud. I don't know how I feel about that terminology, but for lack of a better word, I'm going to use it for today. That version of you did all this so that you can be where you are right now, and you may not even be sitting where you want to just yet, but just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that that person that is rocking in survival mode for you is doing the very best that they can, and you're going to be grateful for that one day if you don't already see it. And I think it can be hard to grieve that loss of yourself, because this person worked so hard, this person was courageous, this person had energy. I don't even have the energy anymore to be fighting the way that the old version of me used to fight. And if it wasn't for me doing all that I needed to do 7 years ago, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be living in DC. I wouldn't be working a decent paying job. I wouldn't be living the life that I once prayed so hard for, the life that I thought was never even possible. And I don't live no glamorous, luxurious life, okay? I'm not somebody who is a millionaire, billionaire, none of that stuff, but I'm grateful for where I'm at right now because I know where I was before, and I know that I worked very hard to get out of that. This life, this simple life that I live right now was not even a possibility in my mind 8 or 9 years ago. I'm always going to be grateful and thankful for that person, but I think it's time to start figuring out what characteristics do I want to keep from that person and what characteristics are time to retire. It's time to lay them to rest and move on and move forward. Let's talk about transitioning into a soft life. The whole point of whatever it is that you're going through, in my opinion, is to get out of it, get the knowledge that you have from those experiences, and help other people. Help other people get out of their situations as best as you can with the knowledge and the experiences that you've had. That is why we are here. That is why you listen to this episode, you listen to the TikToks, the videos, whatever. That's why you're here, I would hope. And if it's not why you're here, let me know, because I'm honestly just a little curious. What drew you to the episodes? What drew you to the social media? Definitely let me know. But for anybody who doesn't know these terminologies, I'm just going to quickly explain them to you. What is survival mode and what is a soft life? So survival mode is a state of constant vigilance. It's rooted in hyper-independence, emotional suppression, overworking, mistrust, and often feeling like rest or joy must be, quote-unquote, earned. Whereas a soft life is in contrast to that. It's grounded in safety, rest, joy, boundaries, and receptivity. It allows for slowness, self-compassion, and emotional attunement. I feel like the goal for a lot of people, is a soft life, but nobody ever tells you how to start making that transition. I'm not sure if people think that that's just automatic. I'm not sure if people think that money is going to give you the soft life, but really it's all about what you got going on in your mental, what you got going on emotionally, what you got going on in your spiritual life as well. And you have to put in work to be able to make that shift. It does not just automatically happen. There's no amount of money in the world that will make you believe that that's just how it happens. If you got trauma and you got $1 billion in the bank, you still have that trauma. It's not going anywhere just because your account went from 0 to 1 billion in a night. It's not going anywhere. So please don't let social media and just regular media, celebrities, whatever, have you out here believing that if you make a certain amount of money, your problems will go away. So many people talk about it. JT said it herself. She still has the same trauma. She's still mad from 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And she has money now. People probably think that she's living her best life now. No, she still has trauma. Still the same trauma eating at my brain. I'm still mad from 20 years ago. And you can listen to the rest of the song if you can find it for yourself. There are a lot of people that talk about the fact that just because I have money doesn't mean that my trauma went away. So many people try to use their money to mask the fact that they're still suffering with their trauma. It doesn't work like that. So I have some tips for you to be able to figure out how you can start making those steps towards a softer life, the life that you are looking for. And it's going to be work. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be difficult work. It's going to be annoying work. It's going to be persistent and consistent work if you want to really get to where you're trying to go. All right. Step number 1 is you need to rebuild your safety system. Trauma will really throw off your nervous system. And there are 2 different types, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. But this is not a psychology class, so I'll save that for another day. But essentially, your nervous system is in charge of all the different parts of your body, your fight or your flight, whether you rest and digest your food properly, your health. All of that is tied to your nervous system. And your nervous system, because of all the trauma and all the experiences that you have been through, is so heightened and is so anxious all the time. You're so stressed out all the time, whether you believe it or not, is because your nervous system is out of whack. And now you got to rebalance it. You have to retrain your body to understand that we are safe now. We don't always have to be on edge. We don't got to sleep with one eye open. We don't have to be worried about anything anymore. And how can you do that? 1, therapy. I'm going to always say that. Talk to a licensed professional, because I don't have all of the answers and they have some of the answers. And if you cannot afford therapy, my next step is going to be to start doing some somatic tools. And essentially that could be things like, you ever listen to a song and you just automatically start tapping? That's part of the somatic work, or that could be an example. Another thing could be breath work, or you could be stretching. For anybody who doesn't know what somatic work is, somatic work or somatic therapy is a body-oriented approach to healing that focuses on the mind-body connection to address emotional and psychological issues. It's recognized that past experiences and emotions can be stored in your body, leading to physical symptoms or tension. Somatic therapy uses techniques like body awareness, breath work, movement exercises, and even modalities like massage or dance to help individuals release stored trauma and tension, ultimately promoting holistic healing. Let me tell you something right now. All of that trauma, all of that stress lives in your body. If you don't release it, if you don't talk about it, if you don't work on it, it's got to go somewhere. That random back pain you got and you're only 20 years old, talk to a therapist. Those random headaches that you get out of nowhere, and I'm hoping that you're drinking your water, talk to somebody about that. Those are little signs that you might have something that you have not dealt with. And you might think that everything is dandy, that you're used to the life that you have. You're used to the absent parent. You're used to the yelling. You're used to whatever you saw or whatever you had growing up. Listen, man, your body is storing that, and your body is dealing with that. And your body's paying the price for that. And I'm not shading you or blaming you or any of that stuff. That's not what I do here. You might not even know, but I would really take the time to figure out how you can address that. If you have the chance, I don't remember the author's name, but it's called The Body Keeps Score. I'll put that in the description so you can look it up. If you can find a free PDF, I would highly recommend. But I would highly recommend looking into that book. It talks a lot about how trauma is stored in the body and how it affects your body. Also, this woman named Anita Phillips, she did an episode with Anthony O'Neill where she talked about how trauma is stored in the body, how it affects your body. And I think they even talked about how that's related to money and how that affects the way that you use your money as you get older. I could be wrong, but Anthony O'Neill is a money guy. I would also recommend looking into anything that she talks about as well. That episode was really good. If I get the chance and if I remember when I'm editing this, I will link that episode in the description for you as well. But there's a lot of studies, and there are a lot more studies that are coming out that talk about how if you don't address your trauma, somebody's going to address it for you. Your body's going to start addressing it for you. And the last thing is you got to start doing some of those affirmations. Trust me. When I first started doing them, I felt dumb. I felt so stupid. I felt like, how is this supposed to work? Like, I'm literally just talking to myself. But honestly, you're probably talking to yourself a lot more than you think. Number one. Number two, it's probably not positive. Let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it a buck. And number three, the more positivity that you speak on your life, the more that you train your brain to think these things and believe these things, the more likely you are to move on those thoughts, right? There are some people who grow up with really abusive parents and they're so used to that negative talk. They're so used to that disrespect. That's all they hear in their voice because they heard it over and over and over and over and over again. But if you start speaking to yourself, I am safe now. I don't have to worry. Everything is all right. I am grateful, whatever it is that whatever positivity it is that you're speaking onto your life, and you keep telling yourself over and over and over and over again, it is only a matter of time before your brain starts to adapt and allows you to believe in the words that you are speaking onto your life. So be careful about the things that you say about yourself, especially if you're consistently saying them, or the things that you allow other people to say to you, about you, around you, etc. Be careful. A lot of people think that words don't hurt or words don't carry any weight. They do, and if they didn't, we wouldn't even be able to talk. Number two, you gotta start redefining rest and your worth, and just worth in general. I talked about this in the last episode about how rest does not equal laziness, and the same thing applies for this as well. Your rest is essential. Your rest is a part of the process. Your rest is non-negotiable. You have to rest, you have to recharge, you need to recenter yourself, you need to do things in life outside of just hustle and grind and get to the bag or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You got to do something else. You have to do something else. There is more to life than just running away from your trauma. There is more to life than just chasing the bag. There is more to life than checking off things on a checklist every single day. There is more to life than that. You got to start doing some self-care routines. And listen, if it's painting your nails, getting your eyebrows waxed, kicking your feet up, whatever that looks like to you on the superficial level, by all means, if that helps you rest, recenter, refocus, and recharge, go on ahead. Whatever that is for you, you gotta do it, and you gotta stop doing it with a goal, okay? Your self-care can't be, I'm gonna watch a video on how to grow on social media. What kind of self-care is that? That's still work. That is still work. Now, that's the type of stuff that I like to watch just for funsies. But I gotta stop doing that because it's not just for funsies, because then I'm always thinking about how can I grow my podcast? How can I grow my social media? How can I be a better producer? Because I am now helping somebody else produce their podcast. That's working. That's working. And it's working for the free ski. We don't do that. Start journaling. If you've never done it before, just start. Okay? There is something so therapeutic about writing down your feelings or just writing. If you got a little story you want to write, a little song, a little whatever you want to write it down. You'll be surprised what you come up with or how that at least makes you feel. There is such a release with putting pen to paper. If you want to do it on your notes app, by all means. I'm just more of a pen to paper kind of girl. But there is something so therapeutic about that. And I used to write all the time. In middle school and high school and even in early college. I used to journal every single night before I went to bed. Now that's like less likely. I really do want to start picking it up and doing it a little bit more, but there's just something so therapeutic about that. Get you a nice little lo-fi playlist or get a couple of good songs, something chill, okay? No Meek Mill and Lil Durk and all that extra stuff. No, none of that. Something chill, something calm, something that will actually allow you to get in tune with yourself beyond all that extra music that gives you all that adrenaline and stresses you out and makes you want to fight somebody. Pick something else. Please. Just pick something else. I'm begging you. If anything, save that for the gym. That's what I do. Number 3. Start practicing how to receive things. Okay? People who are always in survival mode either are overgivers or they don't accept help from anybody because they feel like they got to do everything by themselves. Let other people support you in other ways, whether that's buying your coffee, buying your meal, listening to you talk, asking for help with moving, whatever it is, let them help you. Or in my case, let them give you a compliment. I don't know if there's anybody else out there. I can't take a compliment to save my life. There is like this physiological response that makes me feel so uncomfortable when I take a compliment or when I hear a compliment. And at first, I used to just say nothing and pretty much pretend like I didn't even hear the compliment. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But, and that's not healthy, okay? I joke and I laugh because you got to laugh at something. Otherwise, you're just going to cry about everything. But take the compliment and don't feel like you need to give a compliment back in return. If you don't have one, you don't have one. Okay, just take the compliment, or don't feel like you need to discount the compliment that they gave you, and just be like, if somebody you know how many people complimented on my hair today? So many people complimented on my hair today, and I could have just been like, oh, it's dry, or it's not as long as it used to. And sometimes I do that. Gotta stop. Start receiving things. If it's a little coffee, great. If it's a little compliment, great. If it's some help with something else, great. There are going to be times where you're uncomfortable because you're not in control or because it's a situation that you are not familiar with. Acknowledge it, accept it, and soften up to it. Soften up to the idea. Don't step too far out your comfort zone now. I'm not asking you to just dive all in all at once. I'm not asking you to do all that. But just slowly start accepting that, I can do things a little bit differently. I don't need to be worried about everything. I'm uncomfortable, yes. But let me just go and talk to these two people. And if I'm extremely uncomfortable, we'll dial it back. But if talking to these two people, meeting these two new people works out, then hey, maybe I can go meet two other people. Or maybe I can go make some other friends here and there. Whatever works for you, go ahead and try it out. But you gotta soften up to it. You can't just be like, no. I don't do that. I've never done that. I'm not comfortable with that. Keep some boundaries. Yes, keep some boundaries. But if you're trying to grow and if you're trying to soften up your life, like let's say, for example, I struggle with making friends. I really do. I don't like talking to people. I actually hate it. I hate it so much. Says the podcaster. But I'm really trying to work on understanding that, yes, I'm uncomfortable. Yes, I'm a little bit shy. Am I a little socially awkward? Probably. I can't even lie to you. But, okay, I acknowledge that I'm uncomfortable. But I'm out in public, and I do want to make some friends. So let me go talk to this one person and see how that works. And let me go talk to this next person and see how that works. And eventually, I start to ease up, and I start to be able to make some friends and talk to new people because I softened up to the discomfort. Number 4, start setting boundaries without apology. Listen, I did a whole episode on boundaries. I don't remember what episode number that is. I think I stopped numbering the episodes, but go on and find it if you struggle with boundaries, okay? But you gotta start saying no to things that you just don't want to deal with. Start saying no to chaos. Start saying no to drama. Start saying no to things that you just straight up don't want to do. Within reason, okay, you still have to go to work. But start saying no to things that you just don't want in your life anymore. If you don't want people talking about other people around you, start saying no to that. If you don't want to smoke and drink anymore because that's not your thing anymore, say no to that. There's nothing wrong with that. Start setting those boundaries without apology, and you don't owe anybody an explanation. Nobody needs to know. If that doesn't work for you anymore, it doesn't work for you anymore. Number 5, you gotta grieve the survival version of yourself. That person got you through so much. They were smart, resourceful, skillful. They did whatever they possibly could to get you out of whatever situation you were trying to get yourself out of. And you would not be here without them. And I'm sure you feel like you owe that version of yourself so much gratitude, or that you have to continue to be that version of yourself. But that version of yourself was just for a season. It was for a reason. And I pray that if you're in this position where you're not in that season anymore, you can acknowledge that. And if you're still in that season, do your best. Do your very, very best. And still give yourself some time to relax if you can. I get that's not everybody's personal experience. I completely understand 110%. I really do. But for those of you where you are not in survival mode anymore, you've made it out of the situations that you worked so hard to get yourself out of, it's time to start saying goodbye. And it's time to start grieving that person. And I even feel like a little emotional just talking about it, because there were so many things that I went through to get to where I'm at this point. And there were times where I bawled my eyes out on the floor and just was ready to give up on everything, man. I'm just so tired. But that person cried, they did their thing, and then they got up and they still showed up, and they showed out for me in every single way. And I know it sounds weird for me to be talking about it as another person, but that's how it felt. It didn't feel like me. I didn't feel like I was living in my own body. It just felt like I was a robot. I got up, I went to work, I went to school, I did the things that I needed to do, and I went to bed, and that was it. That was my day. And so I'm at a point now where it's time to say goodbye to that version of myself. I'm not a robot. There's more to life than fighting, living in the hood, fighting the person I don't want to be, fighting for my education. There's so much more to that. I got my education. I tried going to grad school. I found out that wasn't for me, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not the version of myself that I was 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 3 years ago. That person is not here anymore, and I'm grateful for that, because I prayed for times where I could get to this point where I don't have to work so hard, where I don't have to fight all the time, be drained, live in survival mode. And there are still goals that I want to reach. There are still a lot of dreams that I have. There's a lot of things where I'm very ambitious. Yes, there are a lot of things that I want to do, but I don't need to do that in the way that I've done them before, because that doesn't apply. I don't need to live in survival mode anymore, because that's not where I'm at anymore. I'm in control of my life for the first time in what feels like a very, very, very long time, and it's time to say goodbye to that version of myself. I will always be thankful. I will always be grateful, but it's time to move on. And that comes with a lot of pain, because it feels like you need to change the version of yourself that you were. It feels like, who am I without that version of myself that grinded day in and day out for me to get to where I'm at? I'm gonna be lazy, I'm gonna be this, and I'm gonna be that. And that's not true. That's not true, man. That version of yourself that worked so hard for you to get to where you are knew that this wasn't gonna be forever. They prayed that this wasn't gonna be forever. You know how many times you begged for this to just be over and for you to finally get some peace? You're at that point now, and now it's time for you to give that person who worked so hard for you to get here an opportunity to rest. They're ready to retire. They're ready to move on and do their own thing, and they're ready to just let you be the version of yourself that you are now. And that doesn't mean that life isn't going to be hard. That doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean that there won't be challenges. But you're not just surviving anymore. You got a life to live. You have a life to live, and you have dreams to chase, and you were chasing them way back then, but at that point, it was just for you to get out of something, and now you're out of that, and this is just so that you can have the life and the fulfillment and that purpose that you have, and that's all. That's all. And honestly, the best way for you to say goodbye to that version of yourself is to write a letter to that version of yourself that worked tirelessly for you to get here. Thank them. Say goodbye to them. Acknowledge all the work that they put in for you. And read it to yourself. And you might find that that's the most emotional thing you've ever done in your whole life. Because if it wasn't for that version of you, where would you be? Would you even be here still? It's going to be hard. It really is. And I know I'm probably dragging that message out, but it's going to be hard, and allow yourself to feel the feelings, but just understand that that person worked hard so that you can be the person that you are now. Some people's families move to the U.S. so that they can have a better life, and they work hard so that their children can have the life that they never thought that they were going to be able to have. You got to think of your childhood self that hustled so hard for you to get here like that. You worked as hard as you could so that you can give your future self a better version and a better life than the past self got to have. Moving forward, it can be hard to identify when you are making that transition into a soft life, because you just live your life day to day. And it can be hard to acknowledge when you're making changes and when you're growing as a person if you're not seeing these big changes. But here are a couple of small changes that are showing that you are transitioning from survival mode to a soft life. First thing, you are saying no without guilt. I love that for you. You are needing less chaos to feel quote unquote alive. You are choosing rest before you choose burnout. What I tell you in the last episode, if you don't take the rest will come for your neck. You're seeking joy and connection without transactional expectations. It's not, I need to relax and I need to rest, but only if I do this and a third. You understand that there's more to life than just I need to do this, that, and the third before I can rest. Rest is a part of the process, right? You are feeling discomfort and peace, and you are leaning into it anyway. The thing about the soft life, especially when you're living in a hood and you are so used to trauma and stuff like that, it's so uncomfortable. It is so weird, but you still lean into it anyway because this is what you've wanted for so long. You surrender control more easily, praise the Lord, and you feel gratitude in your body. I'm grateful for the experiences that I went through despite how challenging and traumatizing they were. I'm very grateful because I wouldn't be the person that I am now. I wouldn't be giving out unprofessional advice to people and helping people and allowing people to feel seen and heard and grow and be the person that they want to be if it wasn't for that version of myself, those experiences that I went through. And I'm grateful for that. All right, y'all, because I'm getting uncomfortable sitting on this couch, we're going to move quickly. I have 3 quick shadow work prompts. I always leave them in the description as well if I don't read them out loud. I think I'm going to continue to read them out loud in a couple of future episodes just because I know people aren't reading the description. Like, let's just be real. Who's checking that? Nobody. But anywho, I have 3 shadow work prompts for you here. First one, what would your life look and feel like if you believed that you were fully safe, fully loved, fully worthy without needing to prove a single thing? Number 2, how do I treat myself when I'm not accomplishing anything? What does that reveal about my self-worth? And number 3, if I could speak to the version of me that lived in survival mode, what would I thank them for? And what would I release them from? First of all, those are good, okay? I highly recommend answering at least one of them if you can. And if you do, let me know in the TikTok or the Instagram. I'm more active on TikTok than IG because IG right now just sucks. But let me know on the IG and TikTok post about shadow work prompts because it will come out which one you answered and why you answered it. You don't have to tell me what your answer was. You don't have to share that if you don't want to. If you want to, that's great. But just know you're not obligated because there are some things that are just for you. All right, y'all. We are at the point where we reached the affirmation for this week's episode. And the affirmation for this week is, life doesn't have to be hard for it to be meaningful. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 3 times. If you have the ability to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to write this down, however you want to speak this positivity onto your life, find a way to do it. So, life doesn't have to be hard for it to be meaningful. Life doesn't have to be hard for it to be meaningful. Life doesn't have to be hard for it to be meaningful. Let me tell y'all something right now. I cannot wait to get up out of this seat. I am uncomfortable. But that is all I have for you on this week's episode. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you felt about this topic. If you are living in survival mode because you're not out of your situation yet, I am praying for you. I really am. And I hope that whatever you're trying to get yourself out of, you lean on the Lord first. Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you don't believe in Jesus Christ, there's no shade about that either. But I'm still going to pray for you anyway. And if you are out of your situation and you are still living in survival mode, I challenge you to really start leaning into moving on to a soft life. Grieving that version of yourself that got you out of your situation, because that's going to be hard. It's a tough process. And it took me years to understand that I don't need to be that version of myself for the rest of my life. And I actually don't want that. But you already know the drill. If you like this episode, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe if you are watching us on YouTube. If you are listening to us on any of the audio platforms, that's all of them: Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, whatever the thing is for Amazon, all of them. We're on all of them. Go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Leave a review. I really want to know how you feel about this podcast. If you don't like me, go ahead and let me know. That's fine too. Anybody can take a little constructive criticism. And follow us on social media. We are at the HSL Pod on IG and TikTok. TikTok is more active. I like that community better. IG's algorithm sucks right now, but if you like IG, we're on there too. And yeah, I'm ready to go, y'all. I'm ready to call it a night. So I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.